Welcome to the Elk Talk Podcast with Randy Newberg and Corey Jacobson. Presented by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation.
The goal is, what little you and I know about elk hunting, we share with people.
I've got an elk building. It's like 120 yards away. What do I do? First off, the thought would never cross my mind when an elk's being 120 yards away to call anybody on a cell phone.
All elk?
All the time? Only elk?
Only elk.
Well, it's us having conversations, so we usually go down some rabbit holes, but
If you hunt with Corey Jacobson, you will find the landscape is full of rabbit holes. We're just going to make this up as we go.
and you look at it like, oh, that's a target-rich environment. But if you're trying to single one out, a solo target there is much easier to go into than a big group.
We record everything, so there's no BSing, no lying, no faking it with us.
Did we hit the record
I thought I forgot to hit the record button. If you want to know something about elk hunting, this probably isn't the podcast to listen to. Could we give them a list of all the other podcasts where they might learn something?
Corey Jacobson, how you doing?
I'm doing good now that I've got technical difficulties out of the way.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, folks don't know this, but I threw a curveball at Corey today. I said, Corey, we're recording video on this. He's like, what? Wait a second. I got a clean house here. Because he was actually working. And I'm just sitting here in the studio, and my crew has got everything all prettied up for me. But our guest today, he looks like, Joe Rogan doesn't have a studio set up like Dustin Diefenderfer over at Mountain Tough. Dustin, how you doing?
Doing good. Doing really well. I'm
Glad to hear
lucky
that.
too. We got an amazing team that sets up the studio. I just have to sit in here. It's pretty cool.
I've got a pathetic team.
Really?
Yeah,
You?
It's me.
Yeah. My team says they got pathetic talent. So,
Well, yeah.
yeah. Can you imagine if you had to try to make something workable with a guy as below average as me? I mean,
That's job security.
there you go, Dustin. Well, for those of you who don't know Dustin and don't know Mountain Tough, you're going to if you listen to this podcast for the next hour and a half or however long. Corey, he's got to go pick some shed antlers or something in about 15 minutes. So.
I wasted all my days doing that already this year. So
Really? You're done?
I have to be done. There's no more to pick.
Oh,
They've all been picked up.
all right.
Dang.
Yeah.
Well, I don't blame me for it, but
I don't blame you.
yeah. Anyhow, Dustin, thanks for taking the time to be with us today. Corey and I have had the benefit of being on the Mountain Tough podcast
Yep.
in the last, I don't know, 3 months. We were both on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
It was awesome.
Now we get to interrogate you.
I was going to say, I've told my story. I don't know anything about Dustin, though, so I'm excited to get to know him.
Yeah. So Dustin, our audience is like, what's this Mountain Tough stuff? Is this we hear about it, we see it. Who is this guy? Who's his team? What are they doing? What's this have to do with elk hunting?
Yeah. It's been a cool journey. Mountain Tough now is in year 8. So I started it in 2016, and it's evolved and evolved and evolved since then. And we've always kind of grown where the market has wanted us to go. So we kind of let the market pull us in the direction based on the needs that they're looking for. And when we started Mountain Tough, it was just me, and it started in the park behind my house here in Bozeman. And so it's been a big evolution from the park to what we're doing today. It's a night and day difference, because in 2016 I was hauling dumbbells around in the back of my truck, and we were doing these park sessions, and it was the same ethos and principles. It was all about how can we train backcountry mountain hunters so that they thrive in the backcountry on their fall trips. But now, fast forward 8 years, we have this amazing facility, this amazing team, and we're essentially producing content 24/7 now to keep up with the demands of mountain toughers that are training all over the globe now through the Mountain Tough app. So we've gone through a lot of highs and lows, a lot of ups and downs, but the market the whole time since we created Mountain Tough, it's kind of felt like the market in a way was waiting for us to exist. And I think that's because a lot of hunters have been beat up by the backcountry. A lot of hunters, especially from the Midwest or the East, they draw a Rocky Mountain Western tag and they are intimidated about what they're going to run into, or they've heard from friends that, the elevation and the rugged terrain is going to cause some problems physically. And so there was never a step-by-step plan around here's what you can do to start tackling that problem. And when we came out in 2016, we came out with preseason prep for the backcountry hunter. And people, for the first time, had a step-by-step plan where it's like, now I could follow this plan and I can perform better this fall. And that's kind of how it's been ever since. But we've evolved in a lot of different ways because what we found over the years is everyone's so different. We have different fitness levels from beginner to intermediate to elite. And then we have different ways that people train. And COVID accelerated this, where in 2016, most people were training at a gym, but now it is this very nomadic thing, especially in American culture, where sometimes people are at home, sometimes they're on the road, sometimes they have gear, sometimes they have no gear. And so we have a lot of different programs now, depending on where you're at. And if you're going to train with body weight, we have you covered. If you're going to train on a squat rack, we have you covered. And then from beginner to elite, and now we're separating it out by age group as well.
Was that due to Randy?
Man, yeah. You notice he didn't include me in elite. I think he's like, well, you're too old to be a beginner. Maybe we'll call me an adult-onset fitness person.
Adult-onset fitness. That is accurate.
Maybe it's post-adult. I don't know. But, well, that's interesting. Corey and I, we see you guys at all these events and all the things you support and you're a part of. But where did Dustin get this connection to hunting?
Yeah, my story was awesome because I was born in Wyoming, and then we quickly after that moved to Billings, and I spent my whole childhood in Billings, Montana. But the backstory, to add some context a little bit, is I came from a big family. So my dad had 9 siblings, and 7 out of the 9 were boys, and they all grew up together right outside of Sheridan, Wyoming. And so I had all of these uncles growing up that were obsessed with the mountains. So every second we could, we were hunting, camping, fishing. We did a lot of backpacking into high mountain lakes in the Bighorn Mountains, in the winds. And that's all we did as kids growing up. It was anytime you had some free time, every weekend, every summer, every fall, we were looking for an opportunity to get into the mountains. And a lot of that came from me having so many outdoorsmen uncles around me. And my dad was really outdoorsy as well. He was obsessed with fly fishing. And so as a kid, we were outdoors. It felt like 24/7, just, shooting, camping, shooting BB guns. And as I got a little bit older, my parents went through a divorce when I was a sophomore in high school. And when I was a sophomore in high school, that divorce led my dad to kind of look for this support group of buddies to try to figure out how to navigate through this kind of traumatic situation in his life. And ironically, that support group of buddies came from the archery shop. And so he started being at the archery shop all the time. He would shoot his bow there every single lunch break. So he would shoot from noon to 1 every day with the same group of guys. And he just went all in on archery. And in those years, they were doing it for competitive indoor archery. So it was 20-yard paper targets, and they were shooting the competition bows with the huge sights and the huge stabilizers. And it was kind of therapeutic. It was like a therapy thing for my dad to kind of work through this divorce. And I'm really glad how that ultimately ended up turning out, because that laid this very heavy passion for archery kind of on our family. And because he was there every day at noon shooting, I would always swing by the archery shop and hang out with him, meet up with the guys, shoot my bow. And I never got into the competitive thing, but I was always shooting for hunting and to practice and be more proficient as a hunter. But the cool thing about that support group of guys that my dad was shooting with all the time is they kind of took us under their wing. I was pretty young then, and my dad was new to it, and they kind of took us under their wing, and they're like, now it's time to come elk hunting with us. We're going to do a bunch of elk hunting together. And I just lucked out. They were kind of these legendary Montana guys, and they spent a lot of time hunting the Missouri breaks. The Missouri break elk hunting in those years was really, really good. And the elk hunting was phenomenal. It was a lot easier as a resident to hunt there every single year. And so they took us under their wing and kind of taught us everything they knew about archery elk hunting. And we would just spend every fall for like 8 or 9 years. We would spend every fall up there hunting the Missouri breaks. And they were just, in my eyes at that time, they were kind of like magicians, because my dad and I would go out and we'd make like 32 mistakes on an elk hunt. And we'd come back, and one of the older guys in that group, his name was Bob Allen, and he made homemade ghillie suits for his camo. And then he had a diaphragm call press, so he made his own calls on his own press. And he only shot traditional, and he would go out each day with a tiny little Sony Handycam. And my dad and I would go out, we'd blow all these stocks and call wrong and use the wind wrong, and we'd come back, and Bob Allen would show us like big bull after big bull on his Sony Handycam that he was within archery distance of, but he just didn't want his season to end early, so he was going to do that all September. And I was like, man, how is this possible? And I think you and I talked about that, Randy, on your episode on the Mountain Tough podcast. But
Yeah.
the amount of time it takes to learn a lot of these hunting tactics and techniques is wild.
Yeah.
It is. So Dustin, what time frame are we talking here? Sophomore in high school, what year?
Yeah, so this would have been like 1998.
Gotcha. So he's a young guy.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Given Corey's 10 years younger than I am, that's impressive that he considers Dustin young.
Yeah.
So, what on this elk hunting, archery elk hunting thing, the seed gets planted. When did you decide, you know what, I want to make my life about helping people with their physical toughness, their mental toughness?
Mm-hmm.
Is it? Are you sitting there as a sophomore in high school and say, "That's what I want to do when I grow up"?
Not at all. It's insane looking at it now in hindsight, because all of these things were starting to build towards the creation of Mountain Tough without me knowing it at all. And that group of guys really ignited this archery elk hunting passion, and I started taking that over the top. I do have a certainly a weakness that anything I go into, I just go all in at and become obsessed with. And so I became obsessed with archery elk, and that led into my college years. And in those college years, I went to Montana State here in Bozeman, and I started right when I got to town. I started training in the gym. It was Gold's Gym back then. It's gone now.
Yeah.
But when I went into Gold's Gym to start working out in college, even in that year, I was going there to strength train for the mountains because I was so into archery elk. I didn't want to just body build or do biceps and triceps or anything. I kind of went in there with the intent to prepare for September elk hunting. And right when I showed up, I ran into a group of wildland firefighters that were also training in there. And so we became training partners, and we were training all the time together. And that's a really, really lucky part of my journey because I didn't know it at the time, but they were training mission specifically for the mountains. And I wanted to train mission specifically for the mountains. And no one at all was really talking about that in those years, but they were doing strength and cardio workouts to be better wildland firefighters, which is almost identical to what a hunter needs to focus on. And so that really ignited my lifting journey. I didn't lift in high school or anything like that. That's really when my passion for strength training and lifting and using gym equipment to get ready for the backcountry kind of kicked off. And I was just so lucky that I connected with those wildland guys because they were doing the same thing. They wanted to be strong in the mountains for multiple days, rugged terrain, high elevation, and they had a similar demand that a backcountry hunter is going to have, which is those heavy packs. And so everything we were training for was the same. But I still at that time had no idea that mountain tough was a thing or that would be a direction that I would go. I was just trying to get prepared for September. I also met my wife in college, and my wife was a really passionate runner, and she loved to run. I hated to run. But she got like the runner's high, and running was her thing. And we started doing a lot of bit of running together because, I was trying to pursue her as a girlfriend. And so I was like, all right,
Trying to catch her.
And she was running away from
Running
you.
away.
Yeah.
She was running. I was like, I better do this running thing. But the same thing happened there. And because of that weakness I mentioned earlier, where I just will go all in on things that I decide I'm going to do, we went all in on the running thing. And we did a bunch of marathons. We ended up doing a marathon a month for a year. And then that led us to do quite a few ultra marathons. And that was a lot of 50Ks. 50Ks is the 32-mile races. And in our kind of neck of the woods, all of these 32K or the 32-mile ultra marathons, they're almost always in a mountain range that you can hunt elk in. And so you'll see them all over the Bozeman area. And at first I was like, this is perfect. I'm going to run all summer in the mountains that I can hunt in September. And it'll be the perfect training and scouting. And you're spending time in that country and you're getting really physically fit for that country. And my lifting had backed off as I got really into running because you don't have enough time to do everything. And we did all of that running, the marathons and the ultra marathons. And then I harvested a bull that September in archery season. And it turned out to be the worst pack out I had ever had. Even though I was extremely physically fit, what I realized, it was kind of a light bulb moment at that time because I lost so much strength from doing so much cardio, no strength training, just going all in on the marathon thing. I lost so much strength that you can fly through the mountains, but the heavy pack, it changed the game. That it was the worst heavy pack out ever because I hadn't been doing any strength training. And that was a big light bulb moment for Mountain Tough was, man, if you're going to try to do something and be really good at it, you need to decide that's what it's going to be. So if it's backcountry hunting, and then you need to train specifically for that mission. And so it was again kind of this mission specific light bulb moment where you can't just be great at cardio, you can't just be great at strength. You should break down the skill requirements needed to be successful at this job and train to those skill requirements. And that's what all other, professional sporting organizations do. But in these days, no one was really talking about that for the mountain hunter.
What were you doing for work at that time? So you're doing the ultra marathons before you start Mountain Tough.
Yeah, that was a really fun part of my journey. Also, thinking about it in hindsight, because I'd had these 2 light bulb moments now, and I was still doing a lot of archery elk hunting. The idea of Mountain Tough was still not on the table at all at this time. And I went to school for entrepreneurship, marketing, and management. So I was always thinking about entrepreneurship and how someday I wanted to start my own thing. That had always been a big passion of mine. Even when I was young, I always wanted to have my own business. But when I graduated MSU, I got a phenomenal job. It was a really great job. It was connecting corporate Fortune 100 executives together to share ideas. And so from a learning perspective, it was a world-class opportunity. We had COOs from like UPS, Starbucks, Nike, American Express, and I was young. I was like 23, and we were connecting these executives together to share ideas and solve problems. So on paper, it was this great high-paying corporate America job. And at that time, it kind of felt like I had done what the world told me to do, like go to school, get a degree, get a job using that degree. And that's kind of what I did, but I was frustrated and kind of miserable because it was such a corporate America machine that I was definitely kind of like confused and frustrated that I'd done what the world said to do, but it wasn't scratching any of my passions at all. So there was no, physical element, there was no outdoor element. And so even though it was a phenomenal job and organization, I was kind of pretty miserable, which led me to start thinking about some new things.
Gotcha. So did Mountain Tough come from that? Did you go straight from that job into Mountain Tough, or was there a transition?
So the awesome next part of the story that really led to the final creation of Mountain Tough, and that's where all of these things tie together, is so I had my passion for archery elk. I had done a ton of gym training and the marathon training, and then I found myself in that corporate America situation that I really was not happy with. What tied everything together, which led to me finally pulling the trigger and starting Mountain Tough, was really cool. And because I was miserable at that corporate America job, what happened is my wife and I ended up both quitting our jobs. And so we both quit because it was not our passion. And we both went over together and worked in Africa. And so we flew over to Africa. We sold a lot of our possessions. We packed up our house, put our stuff in storage, and we went and worked in Uganda. And in Uganda, we ended up working for a Bozeman guy that had been building orphanages in Uganda since 2001. And he was building orphanages there because Uganda had just gone through this huge civil war. So they'd gone through a big civil war where Joseph Kony is this infamous warlord that is portrayed in a lot of movies because he was infamous for using child soldiers to kind of decimate these villages. And he ended up going through Uganda and killed like 600,000 people, mostly using child soldiers. And so a Bozeman guy had gone over to see how he could help. And he had been doing it for 10 years by the time we ran into him. And when we ran into him, that's when we made the decision to quit our jobs and go help. And it was the best thing. It was the most like rewarding, exciting thing that we've ever done. And so we wound up at a campus that he had created that had 240 kids, and it was all about creating future leaders of Uganda. So he had a huge emphasis on entrepreneurship for the kids, which really is what I was all about, which was awesome. And so with the 240 kids, the idea was how can they become future leaders of Uganda? How can they not be stuck in the orphanage system their whole entire life? And so everything we were doing was about teaching them how to run micro small businesses. So we started an egg operation so that they could learn how to raise chickens and sell eggs. We started a tilapia pond so that they could sell tilapia to the local market. We had a pineapple grove, and it was all these micro businesses. We were outside every single day in the sun. You're doing manual labor every day, so it's really physical. So it kind of like, it was hitting all my passions. It was like physical, and then there was a ton of entrepreneurship. My wife was helping with the first aid in the medical clinic, and she's a nurse. So it was really cool. And we thought we were going to do it for a long time because we were really loving it over there. And my wife ended up getting pregnant with our first daughter there. And this is kind of what led to Mountain Tough. Is when she got pregnant, it was like, no big deal. This is awesome. We'll come home to Bozeman and we'll have our daughter delivered in Bozeman, just because there's no hospitals over there or anything. And so we were naive, and we didn't know what being parents really meant. We were pretty ignorant about it, and we didn't know how big of a life-changing thing it was going to be. And so the plan was we would come home to Bozeman, have our daughter delivered here, and then stay with friends and family for about 6 weeks, and then fly back over and go back to work. And we didn't have any backup plan. We didn't have any jobs other than what we were doing. And so we came home to Bozeman, and as soon as my daughter was born, like I knew instantly that I wasn't going back for a while. And some people are able to do it, but for us, like the safety concerns and the travel concerns and just the difficulty getting to where we were working, I knew I wasn't going to take a newborn baby over there. And I'm glad that's how it worked, because what that created was kind of this burn the ships moment, because we were stuck back home with a newborn, and we had no jobs, and we'd sold a lot of our possessions. And so I was kind of sitting there with this dilemma, and the dilemma was, go back and work for someone again, go back and get another corporate job, or this is the perfect opportunity to create this Mountain Tough thing that I'd been thinking about for years based on all my life experiences. And I'm glad it worked out that way, because I don't think if it wasn't that black and white where it was like, now's the time to do it, why don't you do it now? You don't have anything else going on. I don't know if it would ever have happened. And so that is when we went all in on Mountain Tough and started those park sessions. I was like, let's do it now. And so we launched Mountain Tough because of kind of that burn the ships moment.
Very cool.
Wow.
And
That
that's
is pretty cool.
kind of a different story than what you hear. I mean, it's either that or you work 2 jobs, burn the candle at both ends, and finally step away into it. Yours was more of a thrust into it. We've got to,
Yeah,
burn both ends on focusing on this one thing.
for sure. Yeah, and that's a common topic that comes up in entrepreneurship, where people that have an idea that are always interested in getting that idea off the ground. There are a couple frames of thought on that, where starting it on the side while you have a different job to support some of your income is certainly, I think, a great option for a lot of people. But the beauty of going all in is the amount of work and sacrifice I think it takes to get like a company standing up and off the ground. It does kind of take that 24/7 obsession for a while.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see both sides of that argument sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's, I think the one where you have a full-time job and you start doing a side hustle and building it, that minimizes some of the risk a little bit. But at the same time, it takes a lot longer. You aren't able to just go in 24/7 with all your energy. You've still got other focuses and other responsibilities. So it takes so much longer most of the time to do that. Whereas where you're sitting there with no income and a brand new baby and no place to live, it's like, we got to make this work. This is putting everything I got into this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think Africa taught us a lot about how little you can live with and still be happy.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that was a game changer for us, because I remember doing our taxes that year, and we made $18,000 combined as our married household. And we didn't have any problems. We never ran out of money. And it opened my eyes a lot to so many things that we're scared of are just not real. I mean, we're scared of so many financial things that
Yeah.
are just in our head.
Yep.
yeah.
Well, and
Wow.
that's a great transition into Mountain Tough, because I think there's a lot that can be correlated into hunting. That there's a lot of fears, especially like you'd mentioned initially, somebody from back east or the Midwest coming out west hunt the first time. It's intimidating, and a lot of those fears, that we, even living here in the mountains, there's still things that can creep in. The what ifs, or am I ready for this? And a lot of that's they're unfounded. They're in our heads. And I think a program like Mountain Tough kind of conquers both, not just the physical, but it takes us into that mental realm as well, and provides toughness there.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is interesting the amount of individuals you'll talk to sometimes that are so intimidated by a Rocky Mountain Western hunt that they haven't pulled the trigger and gone on one yet. And that every time I run into that conversation, which is fairly common, a couple times a year at a trade show or an event, you'll talk to someone that's like they've wanted to hunt with their dad and their brother in Colorado for years, or they've wanted to hunt Montana elk for years, but they have a little bit of intimidation around, they don't know what to pack. They don't know what gear they're going to need. They don't know if they're physically or mentally ready. And growing up here and living here, at first that definitely, caught me by surprise, because we've just been running I've just been running around in the mountains since I was a kid, so I never even thought of that as being a factor. But the more that we've talked about it and looked at it, it does make complete sense now, especially when you think about all those mistakes you made over all of those years to kind of get to where you're at now.
Yeah.
That first year can be so intimidating. And I'm really proud of like how Mountain Tough tackles part of that problem for folks, because we were able to really help them with that physical side, which gives them a confidence booster there to tackle some of those fears. And then the mental side too, the the founding principle of Mountain Tough was that we want to be the best in the world at helping our customers become more mentally tough. And a huge part of that came from our understanding that the most consistently successful backcountry hunters, so consistently successful for decades, are not the most physically fit. They're the most mentally tough. And the research is pretty clear on that, that it's not the physical fitness that leads to that consistency. That's part of the equation, but the mental toughness is often what leads to that consistency. It's staying out there longer. It's not coming home early. It's, staying out there through a storm. It's remaining optimistic when you haven't seen anything in days. It's fighting till that last 5 minutes of a 5-day hunt. It's that mental game that really separates success from failure a lot of times. And the awesome thing about it is those same principles appear all over our life, and hunting just dials that down into a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, those traits and characteristics, whether you look at success in business, success in relationships, success in life, success in hunting, it does come down to that mental toughness. And some people think mental toughness is just, oh, I got to overcome some physical pain. And yeah, that often is the case. But there's also mental toughness that comes from dealing with frustrations, compartmentalizing the anxieties over things that you can't control, and being able to focus on other stuff. The mental toughness of overcoming the unexpected, right? Oh, I got this plan. Well, usually that plan lasts for about 15 minutes and then it kind of falls apart. So there's all these other mental toughness factors that, as I've looked at whatever life and trails I've traveled, they apply pretty much to everything in life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I love about hunting, is hunting teaches me and has taught me so many life skills that have made me a better business person,
Mm-hmm.
made me a better, hopefully better husband, better father, better citizen in my community. Because you think about hunting, and whether it's the physical fitness part of it, but it's also the frustrations of 9 out of 10 days, I'm not going to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a mental fortitude to say, okay, today's the day. Today is that 1 day out of 10. Okay, it wasn't today, but tomorrow it's going to be that day. We process so much information that is coming at us and bombarding us as hunters that we can't have paralysis from overanalysis. We got to make a decision, and we go, and we go, and we go. And so I look at all those things, and as I was listening to you talk about this, Dustin, it's like, yeah, that's why there's a category, or I don't know if you'd call it a characteristic or trait, that successful backcountry hunters who are that year after year successful person, they're probably successful in a lot of other aspects of their life because that mental toughness is there no matter what they do.
Yeah, it's so true.
And as you can say, mental toughness, you look at it's like, how do I build mental toughness? You want to build biceps. There's a pretty straightforward way to go and do that. But mental toughness is, it's hard to find a roadmap, but you've got to put yourself in situations where the outcome isn't guaranteed. And, I think physical conditioning, working out is a huge part of building mental toughness. And for me, I hated running. I've not been athletic my whole life. Running was uncomfortable. To get on a treadmill and try to make it for 8 minutes on a treadmill, it felt like time was standing still. And you look, and it's like I've only gone 26 seconds, and I feel like I want to be done. But for me, running was something that taught me, my body can do anything my brain tells it to do. If I can teach my brain to keep saying, just keep going, just keep going, just keep going, my body's able to do that. I can run a long time as long as my brain's okay. But the second my brain says I'm out, my body's out. And so, for me, working a desk job as an engineer for 10 years, my only chance to work out was for 45 minutes during lunch. And I'd go over and hit the stair climber or the treadmill and lift a couple weights. But I started learning I can push myself, and I can
Mm-hmm.
become physically stronger if I can just push through, that wall, whatever's there. And I think it's so important, whether it's, for at that point in my life, I needed to go to the gym and learn mental toughness. But there's so many other opportunities, and I think Randy nailed it. It's not just hunting where people find success. When you develop mental toughness, you can overcome so many things, and it's a difference. You take two people going through a challenge, and one person wakes up every day and says, today's going to be better, and I'm going to give it all I have today because I think it's going to be better. And somebody else wakes up in that exact same situation, and the weight of the world's on their shoulders, and they say, why even try? It's going to be the same as yesterday. And I think
Mm-hmm.
we've just got to develop that. And I mean, there's some personality things, some life circumstances in there, but at the end of the day, it's our mind that really helps us determine not only, the success is a result of us just making a decision to try as hard as we can every day. And eventually
Mm-hmm.
we're going to stumble into success, but we've got to try. We've got to put forth that effort every day. And hunting, there's no better example of that than in hunting, because like Randy said, we know 9 times out of 10 we're probably going to fail, but we get up every morning with that, whether it's false optimism or not, but we're thinking today's the day. Today's the day. And we come back after 16 hours of grueling in the mountains, and we don't have a thing to show for it, but we wake up the next day with optimism and we go and try it again. And that's mental toughness. I mean, whether, however you look at it, but it's just getting up when you're knocked down and not giving up.
Yeah, it's so awesome how, hunting it connects that to life, and so much of mental toughness is just about not quitting no matter, what the day brings. You just don't quit and you remain optimistic about that, and then you can turn around and apply that exact same principle to entrepreneurship that you're going to need to be successful as a hunter. And in entrepreneurship, is so similar to backcountry hunting. It is a game of just not quitting. It's a game of just trying to be 1% better every single day, and then 10 years of 1% adds up to a big difference over time. And it's a game of attrition where a lot of people quit too early, and the people that are successful, the only difference is they just didn't quit too early. And Randy, you mentioned it, but a lot of people, when they think about mental toughness, they do think about a sporting figure. So when they hear the word, they'll think about a a professional Olympian that did something amazing, which is accurate, but I think that
Right.
is also a really long ways from the true definition of mental toughness, because some of the most mentally tough people in the world are in a wheelchair. They're they're they can't use their legs or their arms, but they are the most mentally tough people in the world, and they show that by their ability to overcome adversity, not quit, and remain optimistic through whatever storms life is going to bring their way. And I think that is a lot closer to the real definition, is just getting back up after life knocks you down over and over and over again.
Yeah, and that's where I think, yeah, and maybe it's my bias because hunting has always been at the core of who I am, and what experiences I get to bring to the rest of my life. But as you're talking about that, Dustin, I'm just thinking about so many people who I admire or admired because of their mental toughness and their fortitude. And there are so many examples. Some people might think this is a weird one, but a friend who his wife ended up with a very serious illness that he had to take care of her for the last 5 years of her life. And it
Mm.
was a daily thing. And he was the most optimistic, upbeat person. And I just asked myself, if I was in his shoes, would I have that mental toughness to not throw in the towel or find excuses or whatever? And so we'd talk occasionally, and he'd just tell me, you know what? It, I get that everybody thinks this is like some bad burden or this is, whatever. to me, this is just part of what I do. This is a commitment I made, and when we said there's no plan B, there was no plan B here.
Yeah.
And we're going to push through it. And I'm thinking, all right, if somebody in the prime of their life can be, if you want to say, burdened with that or have that unexpected challenge, and they wake up with a smile every day, what the hell am I complaining about?
Yeah.
And so I looked at all these people in my life that I've had the fortunes and blessings to encounter and have examples from. And that's what I try to look to each relationship and say, all right, Randy, these friendships, these relationships are one of the blessings of life. It's one of the assets in my balance sheet. How do I learn from every one of those? And probably the thing I've learned from most of them is optimism, gratitude, and no plan B. If things go wrong, you kind of pivot and you come up with, all right, how are we going to accomplish this? But the mission, the goal never changes because this is my third business that I've built, and I can say if I would have given myself an easy out along the way, I would have taken that easy out. Everything in life sooner or later has these challenges, these points where you ask yourself, what the heck am I doing? Who thought this was a good idea? And those are the days that some people say, you know what, I got this other option over here. I'm gonna go back to my old job, or I'm gonna whatever. But there's that certain group of people who are like, no, once I punch through this storm, it's gonna be worth it.
Yeah.
And that's why, so many people, I think, give themselves too many soft landings. And when you talked about, what you guys did, Corey and I kind of chuckle like, whoa, that is burning the ships, all right. I think there's the smart way to approach it, and I have the ability to get through this. But if we give ourselves just too many easy paths off the path we need to follow, we're going to take some of those, and we're not going to get there. And I bet you everybody listening who maybe is like, oh, dang, I wish I would have stuck with this, or whether it's on a hunt, or maybe it's in life, maybe it's in a relationship, maybe it's in a business. I can go back 2 days where it's like, why did I bail out? Why did I let a little bit of cold drive me off the mountain that day? My buddy, he toughed it out and they shot a great big elk. There's little examples, and then there's real big life meaning examples where if we give ourselves too many easy outs, it's the human condition that we might take one of those. So I just don't give myself that many easy outs.
Yeah.
For sure. And I remind myself all the time. I mean, it seems like every year the mountain gets steeper, and I think the mountain hasn't changed. And there's times, just this spring shed hunting, I'd look at a mountain that's, I've got to climb 4,000 vertical feet to get up to where the elk are going to be. And I'm looking at it, and my first thought is, I wish it was flat. I wish I was already there. I wish it was flat. But I always remember there's a quote I heard, and it says, don't wish it was easy, wish you were stronger.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And so I remind myself that all the time, that this mountain isn't supposed to be easy. It's here, and it's here. It can make me better. If I just tackle it and go straight up it as hard as I can, the next time I come to another mountain, I'm going to be that much more prepared. Not that it's going to be easier. It's going to be the same mountain, but I'm going to be a little bit better, and it's going to make it a little bit more comfortable getting up there. But you've got to tackle it, and you've got to go through the uncomfortable to make it better the next time. And I just think that, life is like that. We've got those mountains that, whether it's in business, family, relationships, all these different things that are put in front of us, whether by our own doing or just, no one's fault at all. But we've got a decision to make. We can stand there and wish it was easier and say, well, so-and-so's got it easier. They don't have these challenges. And that's one thing I always remind myself, there's somebody that's got something going on that's worse than what I do. So be grateful that it's not that bad. But we look at those mountains and we've got a choice. We can either try to go around them and find the easy way. And the next time, it's probably the next mountain comes in front of us, we're going to look for an easy out of that. And we're never going to just hit it straight on and become better and become stronger. And I think that's mental toughness. It takes physical strength to get up that mountain, in a physical sense. But at the end of the day, no matter what that challenge is, it's the mental toughness that truly gets us to the top and prepares us for the next one.
Yeah, it is awesome like hearing you guys talk about that, because gratitude, they say gratitude is the greatest virtue, or possibly gratitude is the greatest virtue. And maybe that is accurate, but it certainly is one of the most powerful things when it comes to mental toughness. Like one of the king traits of mental toughness is gratitude. So just being grateful for the opportunity to be here, just being grateful for the opportunity to have the health to work out, grateful for the opportunity to be on the mountain. It does flip a switch in your mind that definitely changes it from pessimistic to optimistic. And once that gratitude is flipped, then you can get through almost anything. And it's been fun for me to see this with you, Randy, and you, Corey, and also, Remy Warren has been on the Mountain Tough podcast, and that is so interesting. I think for listeners to know is that if you think about the two of you and Remy, certainly there will be people in the world that think like, oh, Randy just gets to hunt all the time. Corey just gets to hunt all the time. Remy just gets to hunt all the time. But it is crazy. The three, podcasts I got the chance to do with Corey, Randy, and Remy, all three of you are overcoming an insane amount of adversity to do what you do and continue to do what you do. And so, Remy's last year was all about shooting with a mouth tab because he broke his wrist.
Yeah.
But he was tackling that whole situation with gratitude. It was like, I'll just shoot with my mouth. I'm just grateful I can still hike around through these mountains. And Randy, your liver issue is identical to, like, it opened your eyes to, now you're going to be grateful for every single hunt you get the chance to go on.
Yeah.
And Corey, your Lyme's disease issue is identical, where it's, well, I'm going to be grateful that at least I still have the chance to be out here, and I'm going to do everything I can to take advantage of every opportunity. And that is really, really cool, because you have three major spokespeople for the hunting industry that do get to hunt, but you have all three of you have overcome tremendous amount of adversity, and you continue to do that on a daily basis to do what you're doing. And all three of you could have quit a long time ago because of some adversity, but you made the choice not to. And that unique life situation that the three of you have had, it actually made you better, and it made you tackle things differently, that gave you a unique aspect to what you do. So it kind of like adversity writes our life story, and we have to embrace it, because it's the analogy you just used of the mountain, Corey, that life is not supposed to be easy, and it wouldn't be any fun at all if it was easy.
Yeah.
Like if there was no adversity, life would be pretty boring.
Yeah.
Not only that, but we wouldn't, I don't think, recognize. I think adversity develops gratitude, and you mentioned how important gratitude is, and it's something. I mean, don't think for a minute that I'm just an eternally optimistic person that wakes up happy every morning. I struggle. I mean, it's a choice I have to make every day to find something to, positive to focus on, because there's adversities with life, whether it's, you have a teenager that you're raising, whether you have a newborn and you're up all night with. There are these things that bog us down in the moment, and we just have to keep a bigger picture view and be grateful. There's always something to be grateful for, and if we can focus on that, our mind is going to carry us through those tough times. And it's easy to get on a podcast and give all this optimism and cheer and, share all these great things and inspiration. But Randy and Remy and I and yourself, we're no different than anyone else. It's a decision we have to make. And it's a decision I struggle to make every day. It's not like I'm not a naturally optimistic person. I'm a naturally competitive person. And I want to accomplish, I want to conquer something. And there's some days when I wake up and it's like, today's not the day I'm going to conquer. So I can sit here and dwell on that and feel sorry for myself, or I can find something to focus on positive. It's not going to be the end result that day, but I know that tomorrow is going to be a different day, and it might just be a little bit better, and tomorrow will be the day I focus on that. And so I think mental toughness isn't just all about conquering the mountain and going right to the top every day. Some days it's about staying where you are and just making sure you don't fall backwards. And if you do fall backwards, recognize I'm taking a step back today. Tomorrow I'm going to work on getting 2 steps ahead. And so I think that, that's mental toughness to me. It's not going out and conquering everything you put your mind to. It's waking up each day and realizing I'm going to try my hardest today. And I might not get where I want to be, but I'm going to try again tomorrow.
Yeah.
I want to circle back to something you said, Dustin. I've never heard you say this before, but it really struck me. And I feel like I went through this passage in my life where I was doing what the world told me to do. And I think when we're younger, because we don't know what we want to do, we do what the world wants us to do, or what peer pressure or family or someone we look up to is like, we're doing what they want us to do. And I would bet there are listeners out there who are thinking, yeah, I'm doing what the world wants me to do. And I've never heard it said that way, and that's why it struck me. But I know I went through that phase of where I did what the world wanted me to do. And then I came to the realization at age 31. Actually, someone was asking me this story yesterday afternoon, and so it's really fresh in my mind. But when I was 31, I kind of had that realization that, why am I doing what everybody tells me I should do? Or, that everyone's building my story. I want my own story. So I went out and started my own CPA firm, blew all my savings within 6 months, went and took out a second mortgage on my home to get through to the first tax season where I'd actually generate some revenue. Had a 4-year-old, just married, had a mortgage, had all those things. And I couldn't find anything that was more fulfilling every day to get up and say, you know what, I'm out here building my own story. I'm not here painting a picture someone else told me I needed to paint. And I'd read this quote before. I think it was by Churchill, and I never really understood it until I went out and just said, this is it. I'm jumping in the deep end. And Churchill said something to the effect of, if you want to learn to play the game, gamble more than you can afford to lose. And I think about that. You know what? I gambled a lot, not just financially, but I gambled. Well, it could have been a safe path, and I gambled a lot of other things, or risk maybe is the right word. Gamble sounds like reckless and irresponsible. Maybe it was, but I risked a lot more than I probably could afford. But I really learned how to play the game by doing that.
When you risk more than you can afford, you don't have an option. You have to win. You have to find a way to succeed. And I think, and I think you brought it back around. I was about to cut you off and say, hold on, gambling. No. That's careless. That's not, but risking, you have to take risks, and they need to be measured risks, but if you have a plan B that, man, if this starts going sideways, I'm just going to jump ship and go back to where I'm comfortable. You're not going to make it to the top of that mountain. You're just the view's going to be nice, but it's not going to be the same. And you've got to take some risks, and they need to be measured. You don't want to risk everything and do that. But it's
Corey,
important.
You mentioned you were an engineer for however many years.
Yeah.
Did you feel like the world was you were doing what the world had told you to do?
Oh, I hated it. I mean, I was secure. That's the problem. Is I was comfortable. I had a
Yep.
great job with great pay, great benefits. I knew that every 2 weeks a paycheck was going to mysteriously show up in my bank account. I had great time off. I could go and take a week vacation in the summer. I could take 2 weeks in the fall. I could do all these great things. But from the second I turned the key on in the morning and pulled out of my driveway until the second I pulled the key out of the ignition when I got home at 5:40 that evening, I dreaded every minute. And it got to the point where at night I was dreading, I've got to go to work tomorrow. And
Yeah.
there was no fulfillment. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't feel like I had any purpose. I felt like my purpose was putting in time to make somebody else money. And at the end of the day, I would go home unfulfilled and unhappy. Fortunately, I had an awesome family that I got to go home to. So that, I was excited to go home. But every day, it just more and more, I dreaded going to work. And that's ultimately, it's like, I've got to find something that's fulfilling, something that brings me purpose and happiness.
Yeah, and you're so lucky you made that decision, because some people would be stuck, I think, in that, for 10, 20, or 30 years. And I really do think we are seduced to live, we are seduced to go down the wrong path over and over and over again. And it is something that we have to fight mentally against almost every single day, because any sort of media, sometimes our family, sometimes our friends, they're all going to point us down the direction of materialism, having material possessions, and we're going to be really seduced down the path of comfort. So it's going to be, what you need to chase is material possessions and comfort, and that's going to bombard us from all media points. And even our closest friends and family members will push us in that direction because they've heard the same message their whole life. But it's so inaccurate, because really what we're built for, we are built for battle, we're built for adventure, purpose, mission. And if we're not pursuing those things, then we are gonna get that feeling that you just mentioned, Corey, of uncontentment, being miserable. Even though we have material possessions and comfort, we'll be extremely miserable if we're not chasing that passion and that mission that is deep inside of our heart. And I'm sure you see this, Corey, with your basketball kids, but the ones that are going to be champions have that passion. And I think about that now all the time with my daughters, that it's not the college degree that's going to matter. It's not what college they go to that's going to matter. When I think about it, based on my life experience and in this journey I've been on, what's going to matter is pouring gas onto that thing that they're most passionate about. And I see that with a lot of the team members now at Mountain Tough, is like our content director, Nate, is so gifted and so amazing. And he was seduced down the wrong path for a while, and he went and got that mechanical engineering degree, and he got a mechanical engineering job and was extremely miserable before I found him. But his passion was photography and videography, and he was a self-learner. He could learn anything because he had so much passion for it. And he was able to just take off and create this whole career for himself because he decided to go after that. And it was a risky decision. He had to leave a lot of security. He had to leave a lot of comfort to come work for a brand new startup. But you can see how that just lit him up and lit his soul up. And I think a lot of listeners will have fear around making that decision, but once you make it, you realize it was the best decision you ever made.
Yeah, I'm glad you focused on the term comfort, because I have a little thing that's in my nightstand that says seek discomfort. And it's not like go out and, do something stupid to be uncomfortable, but embrace it and try to learn from it. There's never been a time I've put my life on cruise control that I was the best me.
Mm-hmm.
where I was learning, where I was expanding. And some people would probably say, well, Randy, you're almost 60 years old. You're kind of at the end of the, growing and thinking and expanding. And if I can reflect to that over, however many years you say your productive life is, the places where I grew the most, the places that I ended up getting the greatest benefit were the times I went and purposefully took the uncomfortable path. I always say that comfort is a false promise.
Mm.
It's a false promise, and it kind of cheats us of what we can be. And I'm not saying you go out and every day you find something that causes you grief and anxiety, but there's going to be big decisions in your life that aren't easy. That path is going to be rough. Just like Corey was using the analogy about the mountain out there when you're hunting. There's some ways it's like, yeah, if I stay on this logging road and walk around here, that's a lot easier. Well, guess what? There aren't any elk along that logging road. It's just life, whether hunting, but bigger life in general, is so full of choices where am I going to follow the false promise of comfort? Or am I going to embrace and seek these opportunities to learn, to expand, to grow, to find the success and the improvement that comes with being discomfort? That can be discomfort that's mental discomfort, physical discomfort, emotional discomfort. I feel blessed that growing up, I didn't have a real comfortable upbringing. And at the time, you kind of kicked the dirt, like, well, this kid's got the new Minnesota Vikings jersey and I'm wearing my uncle's hand-me-down T-shirt or something. All these little things that you're thinking at the time. You get older, you're like, you know what? That was probably the best upbringing I could have ever had. And then we start having kids and you're trying to balance this. I don't want to make it so comfortable for them that they have these false promises of comfort.
Yeah.
I also don't want them living out in a cardboard shack, next to the railroad tracks. So if I have any reflection to where my path has went, it is that discomfort is not a bad thing. If anything, having some of it and even sometimes intentionally exposing yourself to it, you're probably going to come out the other end gratified and better off in whatever skill set that discomfort helps you hone.
It's huge. I think we should have almost an internal sensor where if we feel really comfortable, then we're probably not pushing hard enough. There's probably some things we should be pushing harder. We should have some adversity. And if we're sensing that we don't have adversity and we are kind of on cruise control, then it's time to start pushing again. And like we talked about at the beginning, where hunting shows us these life principles in black and white. Hunting does a great job of showing this principle in black and white for me, the comfort in the adversity principle, because if you've ever gone on a really, really easy hunt, where you didn't have to put in much work, you didn't have to put much effort in, you were able to, let's say, just walk out on a farmer's field and shoot an elk, there is not any sense of great reward and satisfaction from that. And you compare that to the hardest physical, mental hunts you've ever been on. And the hardest ones are so memorable. They're life-changing. They taught us so much. And that's exactly how everything else in life is working. Hunting just shows us how it works.
Corey, we've told the story about your Alaska elk hunt, and everybody remarks about what a mental challenge that had to have been. Do you think there was a time in your younger life where you wouldn't have had the mental fortitude to deal with those discomforts and you would look
totally.
for an easier path?
Totally. And I think it's all progression. There's days and periods of time where we're going backwards and there's periods of time when we're going forwards. And, when you're young, I think there's wisdom's not wasted on the youth. And and there's times where we do things just because we don't know any better, because we're just ignorant. And so we either power through a tough situation or we quit, whatever it is. But as we get older, we start to correlate, hey, hard work brings reward. And, something for me that I still struggle with is focusing on the end result and missing out on the journey. And, I've been so focused always on success. And success for hunting is filling a tag. So that filling of the tag is my goal. And every single minute, that's my focus. Well, sometimes it takes 8 days to fill a tag. And I get to the end of the hunt, I fill the tag on the last day. That's the pinnacle moment. And I haven't enjoyed any of those 8 days getting there. I haven't internalized any of the lessons learned. And so for me, throughout my life and still today, I still work on focus on right now, focus on today, knowing that, yeah, you've still got that end goal of filling a tag, but focus on working hard today and doing things right today. And the success is going to come as a result of your focus on today, rather than focus on the result and just power through today and forget about it. If it doesn't happen tomorrow, you're going to fill that tag. There's so much more enjoyment that I'm finding in still wanting to be successful, but putting the focus on the day, not the success. And I'll give an example. My son and I went shed hunting a couple weeks ago. And in the past, the result is finding sheds. And so that's the focus. I've got to find sheds. I've got to find sheds all day long. I'm trying to go and find these sheds. And I get back to camp and I haven't found a thing. The day was a failure. And I've started focusing now on, I get to spend time with my son in the mountains today. That is the mission. The end result might be we might find some sheds, but if I focus on just finding sheds, I miss the true enjoyment of what I'm actually getting to do. And all you have to do, we're doing the exact same thing in the exact same place. It's just a shift in perspective that it's not about shed hunting. It's about spending the day with my son. Shed hunting is just a platform I get to use to spend that time with him. And, for hunting, for business, for any of that, I think if we can shift our perspective just a little bit, and Randy, going back to your question, I didn't have that perspective when I was young. So it was either I'm going to power through and find a way to do it, or I'm going to quit. And it doesn't matter because that's my decision. Whereas now it's more of a focus on trying to understand and trying to learn what the journey is and the lessons in that journey that ultimately determine your success or your result at the end.
Yeah. Well, I don't think as young people, any of us had that fortitude or that perspective. We're all a pretty raw piece of clay. We don't realize it when we're younger. Every day we think we're the finished product of who we're going to be, when really we're the potter is life itself. It's our experiences. That's who's going to form this piece of clay that we are, and our own attitudes, our own ability to learn from things. But I always thought, well, this is about as smart as I'll ever get. When I was having those thoughts, I was like, man, are you an idiot, Newberg? But if there is the benefits of being at my age, you now can look and absorb a lot of that's in the rearview mirror. It's fulfilling, it's gratifying, and it really makes it easier to build a priority list today. It is so clear, so easy. I use a story about my grandma. One time she's having a rough go of it when my parents were getting divorced, and she's like, Randy, look. And this is an analogy she used of the old car radio, right? The old AM radio where you push the button to the preset stations. And it did have a dial you could go across there, and then the music would come. And she told me, she said, Randy, that life is a whole lot of static with a little bit of music. Your job is to go and find that music that you like and ignore the static. And at this point in my life, by the way I put my priority list together, it's so easy to get rid of the static and find the music. And that for people who go through life experiences at whatever age, you're learning where the music is that makes your life full, that makes your body and your mind feel so much better. And if I had any piece of advice, it'd be what Grandma gave me when I was like 11 years old. Ignore the static.
Yeah.
You know, life has just got too much static. And if you're going to just focus on that and you're going to let it drive you, push you, and tell you what your life's going to be, yeah, you're wasting some days and some time and some opportunities. So I wake up every day. Here's where the music is. I'm here to listen to music and ignore the static. So
That's a great analogy.
yeah. Little did I know when I was 11, I'd be. So all you people listening, you're getting good advice from older people. You just don't know it at the time. You're going to have to be 60 before you realize what good advice it might have been.
Well, there's a famous study that they interview people and they ask them in their 20s. They'll say, how much do you think you improved and changed in the last 10 years? And the candidates will say, a ton. I've changed a ton in the last decade. And then they'll ask a follow-up question, how much do you think you'll change in the next couple of years? And they'll always say, not much. I won't change much at all in the next couple of years. And then they'll ask that same question to 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50, 60, and 70-year-olds. And the answer is identical across all those age groups. So a 70-year-old, they'll say, how much did you change in the last 10? Oh, I changed a ton. I improved a ton. Well, how much are you going to change in the next couple? Oh, no, I think I made it. I think I finally learned everything. But continually, like, life is teaching us and sharpening us and educating us. And Randy, you even talked about the same thing, that you feel, you're more mentally tough now than you were when you were 35, which is kind of counterintuitive for people to know about.
Like, I could give you a million examples of just daily things where I feel so much mentally stronger than I was at 35. And I always tell, like, my crew, I don't have one member of my field crew who's even 35 yet. And I tell them, I'm like, if I would have had the mental fortitude at your age that I have today, I wouldn't need a vehicle. I could just walk to wherever I was going to go hunting. I mean, and that is something you develop. It's not like I just woke up one day and said, oh, I'm going to be mentally tough the rest of my life. I just had enough life experiences that kicked me around, and all of them were failures. A few successes where I pushed through and said, if you don't kind of wimp out, Randy, look, you can do this, and so mental toughness comes in so many aspects also. It's like, oh, the world's not fair, that, you get people hung up on fair, and I deserve this, I've worked so hard. Hunting teaches you that there is no fairness, right? Some days you get more than you deserve, and most days you don't get what you thought you deserve. And so there's
no one's entitled to fill an elk tag, that's for sure.
And so all these things about mental toughness, and I say this for no matter where you're at in your elk hunting spectrum, whether you just started, you've been in it 5 years, you've been in it 40 years, you are going to be building more mental toughness as it relates to elk hunting every day you go out. There is not a day elk hunting that is a waste unless you just quit and go back to camp, because you are going to learn so much. They just finally published that elk hunter MBA story in Bugle magazine that I wrote, and it's about how elk hunting, public land elk hunting, with all of its challenges, all of its struggles, all of its difficulties, it is such a blessing to have that we get to go and do that. And over the course of time, you will someday realize that, mentally, I am I am such a different mental person today than I was 20 or 25 years ago.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate we aren't born with that mental fortitude, and that it takes so long to develop it, but it becomes so valuable. Like right now, I could think of 5 reasons why I shouldn't be working out and trying to get ready for hunting season. none of them are real good reasons. When I sit there and think about it, it's like, well, Randy, what do you really want? What's going to give you pleasure and satisfaction? Well, going and accomplishing this and giving it my best possible effort based on what my capacity and potential is. If I fill a tag, great. If I don't, well, you know what? At least I gave it my best effort. And that's just a mental mindset. And it's like, okay, I got a reason why I shouldn't go work out today, or I got a reason why I shouldn't climb this steeper hill, or I can come up with 40 reasons of why not for every one reason of why. And to me, that's where, at this point in my life, you just tell me where we got to go. I'll set the pace and I'll get there. I'm not giving up. You know, you might be waiting for me to get there, but I'm getting there. And I don't care what the weather is. I don't care how much the load is. I don't care how bad my liver is. I am going to get there.
Yeah.
And that's not something I could do when I was 30. If you know, they say life sometimes is just a basket of regrets, and I try not to be that person. I don't have these regrets. But if you look back towards some of those, I do have some regrets of. There's one that sticks out in particular. I had an amazing elk tag, and I thought it was going to be easy. And for some, you read magazines back in the time, it's like, oh man, you just show up here, boom, you shoot a 400-inch bull elk. And there were some elk in places that I just thought there'd be an easier one that big. And I kicked myself. I'm like, I'm never going to get that chance again. And I had it handed to me at age 38, and look what I did.
Yeah.
I slept through it mostly. I wimped out. I took the easy path. I didn't have the mental toughness. And so I don't know what that means for anything other than just know that when you're out there every day elk hunting, you're just adding more to that savings account, that deposit you're making towards your mental toughness and your fortitude. And it's going to just make life that much better.
Well, and peeling it back a layer, every day you're working out, you know, whether you're doing the Mountain Tough routine, whatever you're doing, every day you're working out, you're becoming that much better for the elk hunt and that much more prepared. Yeah. And so there's all these layers that we can do. I woke up this morning and I was stiff and sore. And I thought, I have worked out just about every day for the last year and a half, with very few exceptions of I missed a day of working out. And I'm still waking up sore. When am I going to wake up and feel good? And the thought came to my mind, as long as you're growing, you're not going to. Like, we wake up every single day, you think, I should be getting to a point where this is more comfortable. And it's not. And that's because I'm pushing myself. And when I go out and I climb a mountain, that's when it's going to become less difficult. It's still going to be the same mountain, same steepness there, but I'm going to be able to tackle it better than I could a year ago because I've woken up every morning stiff and sore because I push myself every day. And when you measure it by that each morning, you're going to think, I'm not going anywhere. I'm still sore. I'm still, I'm not making improvements. But then when you go out there and you put yourself in that situation where you're challenged, you realize this is a little easier than it was last time. It's not easy, but it's better.
Yeah, and Corey, you nailed it earlier too. You talked about how mental toughness is a muscle just like chest or back, and we have to train it the same way. And that is really helpful for people to understand. If once you understand and that kind of paradigm shift happens where you realize this is a thing and this is a thing I need to work on, just like running or the stair climber or lifting, I need to think about my mindset as something that is going to atrophy if I don't work on it, and it is going to grow if I do work on it. And they've scientifically proved that now, where there's a part of our brain that grows as we do hard things that we don't want to do. And they prove that part of our brain will atrophy when we don't do the hard things that are put in front of us. And that is really, really helpful for me to know that, this thing, this mental toughness thing, this mindset thing, it has to be worked on. We have to think about it. We have to focus on it. And if we don't, it is going to atrophy and go away. And if we do, it is going to continue to be stronger and stronger and stronger.
Yeah. And I've heard people ask the question, how does going to the gym for 45 minutes build mental toughness? That doesn't work. And the question is, are you working out to discomfort or are you working out to failure? Because if you stop as soon as your arms start shaking, you're like, okay, I'm done. You're quitting. If you work out till you can't push up one more time, your mind is saying, I'm giving it all. And I think there's a huge difference in that even if you do say, I'm going to do, 10 push-ups, and you do 10 push-ups and you stop at 10, your mind gets trained to do 10 push-ups. And the next time you do 10, it can do it a little bit easier. But when you get to 10 and you say, okay, 2 more, and you do 2 more, and you're like, I got 1 more in me, and you do 1 more, your mind's taking note. It's recognizing I can do more than what I set my mind to. I set my mind to 10, and then I said, hey, let's do 2 more, and it did it. And then I do 1 more. Your mind learns from that. And you've got to, when you go and work out, you've got to create situations where you push yourself, where your mind literally has a limit and you push through that. And that's huge when you get to the mountain and you're like looking up there, you've already climbed 3,000 vertical and that bull's still 500 feet above you bugling. You have 30 minutes till dark. It's like the odds are not in my favor. The odds are I'm going to hike up there. I'm going to be depleted. And tomorrow I'm not going to be able to get up and hunt because I'm going to wear myself out right now. But when your mind says, hey, remember, we've got this. We can go and do it. You're going to go up there and the next morning you're going to find a way to get up and climb the mountain again. Or you can say, yeah, I'm going to go back to camp and we'll see if that bull comes down the mountain a little lower tomorrow. That's the difference between, mental toughness and mental weakness.
Well, I can vouch that the Mountain Tough program does exactly what you're talking about, Corey. They have lied to me so bad. They tell me, oh, it'll be better next week. You'll feel better next week. And I'll be honest with you, I do feel better, but then I get thrown a little bit further into the abyss and got to climb out a little bit deeper hole every time. It's like, guys, but measured from when I started in December, Dustin, to where I am today, how I feel physically, mentally, my sleep patterns, my productivity, my life is a basket of regrets, I do have a regret that I drove a desk for however many years without feeling the benefits or realizing the benefits, whatever you want to call it, of investing in my health and investing in my hunting. And you guys have pushed me. There are days that I may be standing there and you guys are filming me with a smile, but inside I'm like, these SOBs. Someday I'm going to get even with these guys. But it's all part of that process, right? You need to, sometimes it helps to have others to push you. Sometimes it's your own accountability to where you want to be that pushes you. So I guess that's a plug for what you guys do at Mountain Tough. And hopefully, as we're wrapping this up, people have come to learn a bit about you and this whole idea about mental toughness being as important as the physical toughness. And they are a parallel and they overlap a lot of times, especially when we're out hunting. And hopefully they'll go there and check you guys out and get in.
Real quick, Dustin, tell us what do they get? What's where can they go to sign up, and what do they get when they sign up? You mentioned at the beginning you got basic, intermediate, elite. You've got Randy's age group. You've got younger age groups. Just walk us through what the Mountain Tough program is.
For sure. Yeah. Before I explain that, I will tell one story real quick because I was thinking about you this weekend, Randy, because we were at a barbecue and a good friend of mine bought he bought a horse for his girlfriend, and the horse didn't have a name. And so every day he would ask his girlfriend, he's like, what are you going to name the new horse? And she's like, I don't know. I'll name it tomorrow. And then he'd ask her the next day and she's like, I don't know. I'll name it tomorrow. And then this went on for months. He was like, what are you going to name the horse? She's like, I'll think of something tomorrow. And they ended up naming the horse Tomorrow because she eventually could never think of it. So now they have a horse named Tomorrow, which is really funny, the sentences that come out with that. But It made me think of you because every day you'd come in and I'd tell you that you're going to feel better tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it's like the free beer tomorrow sign at the
Yeah.
bar, which is awesome though, because I think that is, it's the 1% better every day that works in all of these life decisions we have, whether it's what you're going to eat, how much you're going to sleep in, decisions you make every second of every day. They're either a +1 or they're a -1 into your bank account, into your abundant life bank account. Every decision we make is a +1 or a -1. And when you get a lot of +1s over 10 years, over that amount of time, you can look back and see this tremendous amount of positive change. And you don't feel it when you're grinding it out day after day. You always just have to think about, tomorrow I'm going to feel a little bit better. And tomorrow might never come, but I think seeing you come in each day and then seeing where you're at now compared to the first day you entered the Mountain Tough gym, we can see all that change, even though every day is still hard and
Yeah.
every day is still a struggle. But all of those 1% have made a huge difference.
Yeah.
How
Well,
painful was it to see him walk in his shorts with his white legs and his white socks pulled up to his calves? Like that didn't change from beginning to end. He was still dressed the same, and that had to be painful to see.
yeah,
know.
if there's one other thing that comes with age, vanity goes away somewhere in your late 40s. I couldn't, like one guy, a friend of mine, commented on one of the videos, Mountain Tough post, Randy, I can't tell where the white socks end and the white legs start. You know what? You've mistaken me for someone who cares.
You're going to start a trend. There'll be white socks all over.
Oh
gym.
my goodness.
But anyhow, what can people, where can they find you? Where can they find out more about what you guys do, Dustin? Because it's been such a huge help for me. I want other people to know about it and get a chance to experience it.
Absolutely. Yeah. The Mountain Tough app is native now. So that means it's fully available on iPhone, iOS, Android, and you're going to see it on all your smart TV app stores as well. And all Mountain Tough customers, when you start, you'll start on a 14-day free trial. And so that gives you a couple weeks to poke around and look at all of our content. And then the subscription gets you access to everything that we create. So it is similar to Netflix that once you're a subscriber, you're going to see every program we have and you can go down any pathway that you choose. And that includes all of our physical programming. So that's going to be all of our intermediate, beginner, elite workout programs. We have in-season, preseason, postseason. We have 365 days a year covered for the backcountry hunter. But you're also going to see our body weight programs, our minimal gear programs. We have daily workouts that are fresh every 24 hours. And then you'll see the preseason prep for 50 plus, the one that we've worked on with you, Randy. And then the subscription is also going to unlock all of our mental toughness content. So you'll see mindset curriculum in there that's not a physical workout. It's the science of mental toughness. And then we have a mindset 1.0, a 2.0. There'll be spiritual programs in there. A lot of those are topics around being a better father, being a better husband. And then you'll see bonus content, which is mobility, staying mobile as a mountain hunter, and a lot of other. There's a tremendous amount of content in there, and it's all under the exact same subscription. And all of that, you can just go to mountaintough.com. You'll click start free trial, and then you can either do the monthly option or the annual option. And then once you start your trial, you'll see everything that we have to offer.
Well,
Very cool.
that's great. Here's the problem that we have, Dustin, is this audience is like What you don't have a promo code? So do you have a promo code for these folks who've sat through an hour and a half of us telling stories?
Yeah, the best promo code right now for sure is going to be, well, we have the promo code Randy, which is going to be a great option.
Okay.
And then timing wise, when this goes out, our pre-season prep sale is probably going to still be going on.
Okay.
And that's going to be right at the top of our website. So it's going to be up at the top in the banner.
So you just look at what that promo code is. It's listed on there.
And you can even click that banner and it's going to apply the preseason prep sales 40% off. So it's a really good sale.
Wow.
And that'll be running in this springtime.
Okay. Well, go do it, folks.
Yeah.
I'll guarantee you'll shoot more elk this year.
There he goes. Another guarantee. Between marriage advice and elk hunting success, he's Did your wife ever convince you to put the disclaimer at the beginning of the podcast?
No, she's still working on me.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just tell you, I saw Randy in person last weekend at Missoula, and I noticed it, and several people I talked to noticed it. Randy has changed physically, just his posture, his getting up out of a chair. I mean, everything. He looks younger and he moves like he's younger. And I have no doubt that it's going to translate to more enjoyment. I won't guarantee more success, but he will feel better in the mountains this fall. I guarantee it. And just from the outside, not seeing Randy physically in person for several months, to go from when I last saw him to where he is now, it's been a transformation for sure.
We can guarantee you'll feel better tomorrow.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is a false guarantee. That is so much hokey. Don't get me started on that.
Say it every day.
Like, I'm going to go over there this afternoon, and Sarah's going to put me on the rack and try to ruin my body and, put me through this and that. And then she's going to say, but you'll feel better tomorrow. That is like the most false promise I have heard. And now it's become the joke, right? But I appreciate that people think I actually can sit upright now, Corey. That's good to know.
Yep.
Hopefully I can fulfill my own guarantee. You'll kill more elk. But, well, guys, I've taken us over what our time limit was. I apologize for that. And I'm going to let everybody get going. But, folks, if you get a chance, go to Mountain Tough, MTNTOUGH.com. Did I get that right, Dustin?
That's right.
Yeah. And we got to have you on again, Dustin. I think you and I are trying to elk hunt this year. Maybe we could convince Corey to come up and call for us.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
It'd be great to do a follow-up podcast after that and see if my guarantee, see how many refunds I got to give.
I would love that.
Awesome. Dustin, thanks for doing what you're doing, and thanks for giving us some of your time today and sharing some of your wisdom and inspiration.
Likewise for both of you. Appreciate it. And it's been a great honor and privilege to be here. And thanks for everything you guys are doing for hunting and passing down it to the next generation and all the conservation, for sure.
Absolutely.
Happy to do it. Thanks for being here, folks. We'll catch you on the next one.